A lovely and dazzling Muslim girl was wedded with a magnificent horse, producing a massive outcry throughout the village. The girl acquired a significant affection for the horse and decided to marry it. Yet underneath this seemingly a weird decision lay a great. The village's people were mysterious, deeply divided, causing quite the story has caused a lot of controversy. Why did it go viral on the internet? What happens when the beautiful girl marries the horse? An extraordinary thing happened following the marriage you will be startled by. Hearing the story, this video is incredibly educational and vital for everyone. So stay with us till the finish to understand the crucial lesson it conveys doesn't. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Go to the channel for more fascinating content. In a tiny village there lived a wealthy couple endowed with they had enormous territories and were wealthy. Palace luxury cars and numerous servants ministered to their every need. Regardless of their affluence, the pair always troubled and miserable, because they were the absence of a kid resulted in unfillable emptiness in their hearts. Husband searched tirelessly he found a solution to his wife's problem. I went to numerous physicians' offices and specialists. Despite all their efforts, remained childless in their search for blessings. They fed the destitute for 7 days, even planned marriages for orphans girls. Their prayers went unanswered. One day, a servant came to the affluent woman and said, "Madam, there is a fakir holy man at the entrance." He refused to take anything from a servant's hand, insisting that only the mistress of the house should give him. Hearing this, the wife grabbed some. She held flour and money in her hands and went the door at night to meet the fakir. Seeing her, said, "Daughter, what is bothering you? You appear deeply worried, as if some enormous sorrow haunts." The woman shared her grief with you. "I'm a fakir with no children. Allah has blessed us without children, wealth, but He has not given us. What purpose does a child's blessing serve? Wealth, when there is no one to inherit it or bring delight to our." Upon hearing this, the fakir also seemed worried. After a moment he said, "There is a daughter. It's possible that you'll be blessed a child. Allah will give you a son, but only live for 14 years later." The wealthy woman replied, "If this is Allah's will, so I have no objection, at least I'll have fun bearing a child, even if shortly I shall no longer carry the pain of not seeing my own child." The fakir then reached within his bag and took out a handful of wheat. Handing it to her, he said to grind this wheat into flour. "Bake a single loaf of bread for you and your husband must eat it together later. Allah will reward you with a child nevertheless. His life will be limited to 14 years, the woman thought to herself. If it's for 14 years, I will enjoy seeing my child, cherish each time with him and give my love. Who knows whether I'll even live long enough to see those 14 years with a life of 4 days. 3 have already gone, and only 1 left. This one day, I can at least witness blessing of having a child of my own." With this idea, the ancient fakir departed, and the wealthy woman reappeared. Home to recount the entire incident to her spouse, she claimed the fakir had told, "I believe we will have a child, but her husband lived barely 14 years. Said, we have consulted many elders and doctors, but nothing helped. Follow this guide and observe what." The woman then grounded the wheat into flour, made bread and shared it. She ate it with her hubby. A month later she became pregnant while witnessing the bread. This miracle is for her spouse yelled that the fakir's remarks were true. Must be a great saint. Time passed, and after 9 months, the couple were blessed with a newborn boy. Joy knew no boundaries, and they spread providing meals to the underprivileged. For 11 days they celebrate their son's birth. They called their son Shahzad and raised him with enormous love and care, but the thought that a child lives for only 14 years left them uneasy. They were reassured. "Yourself speaking, even if it's only 14 years, we have been blessed with a child. During this time we will complete all of his wishes." As time passed, their son turned 8 years old. Out of affection towards his parents, often dubbed him Shahzada, which means prince, his dad kept him indoors at all times, ensuring that all of his requirements were met within at home. Shahzad was taught the Quran, and he acquired his schooling at home. Never stepping when Shahzad reached the age of 12, he said to his father, "Abba, I want to go with you to the fields. You never let me go. I'm bored of staying home all the time." The father spends time hearing his son's plea. Thought my son has only 2 years left to live. Let him enjoy these years as he wishes. He forced a smile and continued, okay, you can go anywhere. Like one day, the couple decided to arrange Shahzad's marriage so that he spend his final 2 years in enjoyment. But first we must consult the fakir who delivered this good news 12 years previously. The wealthy guy instructed the servants find the old fakir who visited. We have years. The servants searched tirelessly every day, night, and ultimately discovered him in a tiny hut completely immersed in the Remember Allah with profound respect. As a favor, they brought the fakir. When the wealthy man arrived, he said, Baba, my son has barely 2 years left to survive. He is now 12 years old, but extremely righteous and clever. I would like to organize his. Please guide us on what form of marriage. Girl might be suitable for the fakir. Listened intently and say, marry your son with a girl who is pious and a haiza of the Quran. If your daughter-in-law is righteous, God-fearing, she will pray for her husband, and her prayers could influence his destiny. Dua possesses enormous power and can alter fate by following the fakir's counsel. The wealthy man planned Shahzad's marriage. A devout Hafiza from an impoverished family. Despite her family's financial weakness, the girl was religious and virtuous. The wealthy man warned his son Shahzad, no. Regardless of where you go or what you make, ensure that your wife never finds out about the. Shahzad spent his days discovering the truth about his fate with his wife, but would leave the home late at night, return before dawn, keeping his wife oblivious of every night. A few days have gone since this absence. By time Shahzad had reached the 14 years old, with only a few days to he lived one night, but his wife abruptly, when she woke up, she realized the bed was empty. Her husband was not present. Shahzad's wife awoke in her room at night, and we searched the entire house, but Shahzad, she was disheartened when she couldn't find him. Returned to bed, opting not to mention anything to anyone. The next morning at Fajr prayer, when she awoke, she discovered Shahzad laying on the bed, as if he had always been there. Night, she didn't ask him anything. She keeps her concerns to herself. The same occurred again the following night. Shahzad left his house late at night. Throughout the night, his wife became increasingly nervous. She thought to herself, where is my husband? Goes every night. Who does he? Despite her concerns, she couldn't gather the strength to question him fearfully. His reaction. Days passed like this. In one day, an ancient flower seller woman arrived to there. She had visited the house several times previously. Sell flowers. Shahzad's wife purchased some flowers from her. With a smile, observing her somber demeanor, the old woman asked, dear child, why do you appear so sad, and what is sorrow? Concerning you? Tears welled up in Shahzad wife's eyes as she answered, mother, what can I say? Every night, my hubby leaves. He leaves me alone and goes away. He returns before dawn and lies back in bed as if nothing happened. I don't know where he goes or whom he meets. With this thought, the old keeps me distressed all the time. Woman told youngster not to sleep tonight. Stay alert and keep an eye out for your hubby. Shahzad's wife paused and said, but what happens if I accidentally fall? Slept. The old woman advised, make a tiny slit in your hand and sprinkle salt. Pain will keep you. Shahzad and his wife remained awake that night. Following the old woman's advice, she fashioned a little. She cut her finger and sprinkled salt over it. Endure the ache, stay awake all night. But as day approached, exhausted, she washed herself finger and assumed the night was past. And my hubby didn't go anywhere. Let me rest for a bit now. She finished her Fajr prayer and went. She went back to sleep. When she awoke later morning, it was already 10. Shahzad was awake, sitting with his mother. Appeared as if nothing had happened that night and passed without her discovering anything. Shahzad wife, I had no idea where she was. The husband went at night. In the evening, the old flower sell woman reappeared and asked her, did you find out where your husband is? Night, with disappointment in her voice. Shahzad's wife said, no, mother, last night. I couldn't find out anything afterwards. I'm not sure why I fell asleep during the Fajr prayer. I'm not sure where he went, or if left. The old woman informed her child, tonight make the wound slightly larger, and add salt on it again. Husband tries to leave it. Night, stand his way and ask where you are going. The girl took her advice as the night progressed, she struggled to fall asleep. Around midnight, her husband silently received I got out of bed and attempted to escape. Immediately she got up and stood in. He addressed him and asked, "Where are you?" "Going so late at night? Who are you going to meet? Are you misleading me? You do not meet another woman every night." Shahzad did his utmost to reassure. His wife says, "I cannot tell you the truthfully. If I do, you will leave me." But wife was adamantly insisting, "No, I want to know the truth no matter what." Finally, Shahzad gave in to her persistence. When he was about 14 years old, he brought a handful of wheat and told his wife to take handfuls of wheat in your. She moved her hands like he did. Shahzad said, "First throw the wheat from your right hand to me. I'll see my actual shape after that. Throw the wheat from your left hand toward me. But remember, if you fail to throw the wheat with your left hand, you will lose me forever." She tossed the wheat from her right-handed him in an instant. Shahzad turned into a white horse. When a long, hefty man saw this, she was overtaken by terror. Shahzad reminded, "Now pitch the wheat from your left." In her amazement and panic, she forgot to pitch the wheat from her left. The horse rushed out of the house and disappeared, never to return. His wife, I was distraught and believed it was all mine fault if I'd flung the wheat out of my left hand. He wouldn't have left, she said. Everything to her in-laws hearing her. They were so overcome with grief. They limited themselves to their 2 months passed this way, then 6 months, despite looking everywhere. There was no evidence of one day. Shahzad's wife approached him, her in-laws, and pleaded, "Please grant. I have authorization to go find my hubby." Her remarks gave them some hope. They agreed and sent numerous slaves to accompany her resolute Shahzad wife. She disguised herself with a headscarf and set off with the servants to find her lost husband, and the young woman went to a place a little further from her hometown. There was a lot of human. She developed a public kitchen, a Larana, where people could eat for free. She announced to everyone that you can receive free food here. However, please inform me of any new or strange narrative or piece of everyday. People gathered to eat and shared new or strange tales, but none what was the information she received. She needed days went without any significant development. In the same town there lived an elderly woman who she earned a living by selling either veggies or flowers. One day while gathering flowers, evening fell, and darkness surrounded the surroundings. Are unable to see clearly in the darkness, the old woman moved onward and saw a cow with a bell tied around its neck. She considered, "If I followed, I'll finally find my path." Back to the cow moved across a big open space, fields, and the elderly woman followed. Eventually the cow stopped beside a cave, and into it, the old woman followed. The cow inside the cave she noticed that was dimly illuminated. Shocked, she pondered, "Where did I end?" She huddled in a corner of the cave. I observed what was happening. The cow stood in one place. Suddenly a white horse with a long, thick mane. The horse appeared to have changed into a young man, began milking the cow, and the young drank milk afterward. The man prepared a lunch for himself and sat down. A crow flew right as I was about to eat. The young man entered the cave and inquired, "Crow, tell me how you are." The crow replied, "To your parents are afflicted with anguish from your absence, and are bedridden." The young guy inquired again, "Who is caring for my father's business and land?" The crow responded, "To your father's a trusty servant is managing everything." Then the young man asked, "How is my wife?" The crow responded, "Haisi Quran's wife opened a public kitchen in the city, where she feeds." People heard this, and the young man went to the old woman had been sleeping. Secretly seeing everything, was amazed. She hadn't seen anything like it in her life. She stayed there throughout the night and the morning. The young man milked the animal again and said, "It is free to graze in pastures." He transformed back into the old woman fled the cave on a horse. She too left the cave and started her journey back home. The walk was lengthy, and she grew weak with along the way. She discovered a public kitchen and chose to stop there for a meal. The young woman in public kitchen asked what you wanted. To the old woman said, "Yes, dear, I am. I'm quite hungry and haven't eaten anything since yesterday night." The young woman replied, "But before you eat, you must inform something new or unique narrative." The old woman wondered what could stranger than what I observed before. Night, she described the entire episode. From the previous night, the young woman I knew everything, and realized that the old woman had spotted a horse. Actually, it was her husband who fed the elderly. Woman generously said, "Please take." I agree to that. Cave. The old woman hesitated and responded, "No, don't go there. It's a terribly dangerous environment, your life might be at risk," but the young lady insisted it is. "Very crucial for me to get there, please. Take me." The old woman eventually agreed that when nightfall arrived. After some time, a cow hid in the cave, arrived accompanied by a horse. The young evolved into a young man. The woman watched the man milk the cow. We made meals and waited for the crow. A crow arrived and shared its. The young man said, "How are my parents?" The crow answered that your parents are still unwell. When the young man questioned about his wife, a young woman abruptly emerged from her hiding spot. She cried and begged her husband for forgiveness. Witnessing her cry, the young man also wept. He comforted her down and asked, "If you wanted me to return, you must finish a challenging mission, and you must do it alone if you want to succeed. Will be cured forever." The young woman inquired, "What is I am willing to do anything to complete the work." "You," the man responded, "when you leave this sea cave, go to the right, and you will confront a deep jungle you must traverse. There are 7 such woodlands in the 7th forest. You will find an old hut, inside which dwells an elderly man with a black horse. Must get some hair from that black horse, but you must do this mission before the Zuhr prayer." The night passed, and in the morning the young woman told the old woman, "You can now return to home. I must continue the adventure." The young woman set off on her own journey. When she reached the first in the forest, she encountered several horrifying. Nevertheless, she chanted poetry from the Quran and continued moving forward. She reached the second forest, which had even more fierce beasts, but as she was a Haiza and a pious woman, she was safeguarded in this manner. Eventually reached the 7th forest. She observed an ancient hut. Outside the hut, a black horse stood before the young woman. I entered the hut and noticed an elderly man. The old man appeared absorbed in worship. I looked at her and asked, "Where have you gone, daughter?" "Come from. You look very distressed," the young woman explained everything to the devout elderly man. Later, listening, he thought for a moment and then said, "Daughter, your husband has cursed with black magically." The old man explained, "The person who cast the black magic merged your husband's hair is like that of a wild horse. However, the sorcerer who performed the spell has now passed." The young woman inquired what I should do. "Do now," the old guy responded, "collect hair from the black horse tied outside. I will say some prayers over it, and then you must put this hair on your husband. While he is on his horse." The woman performed just as directed. She grabbed the black horse's hair, brought it to the blessed old man. An ancient man said prayers over the hair. She handed it back to her, to the cave where her spouse was, standing like a white horse. The woman arranged the black horse's hair on him, and the horse promptly he'd morphed into her husband. Shahzad saw something that made him eternally human again. Thorns pierced his wife's feet from the forest journey. He remarked, "A virtuous, noble women like you are actually blessing that only the fortunate received." The couple and returned home. Upon arrival, they found Shahzad's parents still uncomfortable and significantly weakened. When his parents saw him, they were happy. I knew gradually they began to recover their health. From that time on, they all lived together in peace and happiness. Moral of the narrative reminds us that if wife believes in the oneness of Allah and is persistent in her worship, can direct her husband back to the right, regardless of how sinful, immoral, or he may be lost, yet prayer carries great value, power, and unshakable determination. And trust in Allah, even the greatest difficult jobs can be made easy. Darling friends, don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends, family,